Well, good morning, and thank you for the honor and the privilege of being with you in this room this morning. We've heard such good words. The words I want to talk about this morning are transformative in some way because I want to provoke you to think about how we might transform our leadership, our approach to the workplace. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I live there primarily because Andy Stanley's church is there. Any Andy Stanley groupies out here? Okay, I'm a groupie. I recently had Andy keynote our global convention at Popeyes, and as you might expect in a public company, that was a little different. Andy talked to us about beyond you leadership, and one of the things he said that I just treasure is he said, as leaders, we must empty our cup into the lives of the leaders that we serve. We must pour out our observations, our experiences, our counsel to the leaders that are coming up behind us. And this really captures the reason why I came today is my purpose is to share a story with you about transformative leadership solely for the purpose of filling your cup a little bit. We're just one company and one case study, but I hope that when we leave here today that we will have left your cup full with transformative thoughts about leadership. Now, the other thing Andy said that made me laugh really loud is he said, you know, Cheryl didn't invent servant leadership when he introduced his thoughts, and I want to remind you of that. Jesus Christ invented servant leadership, and as I talk about this morning, what I'm talking about is can that transform, can the things we've learned from Jesus, can that transform the workplace, the secular public company, big corporation workplace? It's going to be a bit of a challenge, right? I think we have a problem in our culture, and I call it the spotlight problem. Let's think about it this way. Imagine for a moment that you're sitting in the audience of a Broadway play. The lights dim, the music plays, and the audience waits for the actor to come on the stage, because we know when the actor arrives, the show begins. So it is with our leadership. When we become a leader, we are walking on a stage into a spotlight, and all eyes are fixed on you. The people want to know what you're going to do, what you're going to say, what you're going to do in their lives. You are the main actor in the play. You are the leader. So I challenge us to think about what if the spotlight came to the stage and there was no one in it? What would happen then? Well, in our culture, the people would certainly be confused. They would wonder where you were. They would wonder what you were doing. They would think you probably didn't understand your job until they realized that you're a different kind of leader. You've, in fact, not sought the spotlight. You've left the stage to go find the light crew. And you're going to shine the light on others, to focus on the people that you've been asked to lead. What will you do then? You will serve them well, and the show will be a fabulous success. This notion of servant leadership is not new. In fact, it's been around as a secular idea for over 40 years. A servant leader is described as having humility, shunning the spotlight, listening carefully to people, sharing credit with people, caring deeply for people. And we wonder about these leaders and think, wow, that's probably a good leadership style for charitable organizations. But could a servant leader deliver performance results? Well, we doubt it because our favorite line is, nice guys finish last. My goal is to put a different idea on the table, that if you move yourself out of the spotlight and dare to serve others, you can, in fact, create the conditions for superior performance results. Most people say this doesn't exactly line up with reality. Selfless service is for causes and maybe for saints. Selfless service might be called weak or cowardly, not bold or courageous. And the reality that most people face in the workplace is they say, I've never met anybody like that. And I doubt that servant leaders actually exist. We in this room have an opportunity to change that experience, to change that worldview. We have an opportunity to be a different kind of leader. How would I define dare to serve leadership? I believe a dare to serve leader is a leader who is courageous enough to take the people to a daring destination, yet humble enough to selflessly serve them along the journey. And it's in this dynamic tension between courage and humility that we can create the conditions for superior performance. Now, how does this spotlight problem look like in the real workplace? Well, this next picture, I don't know this man personally. I have nothing against him. I just know what we attribute to him as a leader: power, wealth, jets. I'm pretty sure he likes being in the spotlight. I'm just guessing. And he's famous for 2 words. Do you know them? You're fired. We watch his TV show. We admire his stuff in the magazines. And our culture thinks this guy is winning. But what about the people that work for him? Are they winning? The followers say absolutely not. A power leader creates this kind of environment, an unsafe workplace full of fear and trepidation. No one brings forward their big ideas for the business. No one stretches to grow their capability. Instead, they cower like the cowardly lion. They run for cover, they hide, and they just hope they don't get hurt. The outcome is a workplace full of busy, crazy, chaotic activity. Have you been there? Everyone defending that they're doing everything they can. They protect their jobs, they defend their importance, they hide from the proverbial axe. In short, they chase their tail. This does not produce superior performance. Yet at some point in our life, we have all been a part of some organization like this, where power leads to fear and leads to chaos. Can we be honest about this? Can we own the fact that as leaders, it is our responsibility to create the environment where the people work? Well, what we laugh about reveals the truth. So our leaders, pretty self-absorbed. The employees, pretty powerless. And I would suggest the results of all that are pretty hit or miss. In fact, there's some numbers attached to the performance results of our leaders today. Gallup tells us this. They tell us, and you've heard the statistic, less than 30% of Americans are highly engaged. That means excited about going to work, okay? Less than 30%. People don't trust their boss, and they spend most of the workday thinking about getting a new job. Gallup estimates it costs our economy something like $350 billion. But then interestingly, they give us better numbers to think about. They say that if you actually had highly engaged employment, your customers would be more loyal, your employees would stay longer, and you would make a lot more money for your business. So if these kind of powerful results are available to us by creating a better environment for work, why aren't we doing it? I believe it all comes back to us as the leaders, our responsibility to change the way we lead, to lead the way we'd want to be led, and to be willing to dare to serve. So at Popeyes, we're in year 8 of a grand experiment in a very public company world. We wanted to prove that if we did this, if we led differently, it would produce different results. We wanted to test a new thesis of leadership. So in the fall of 2007, Popeyes was a very struggling restaurant chain. Long history of declining sales and profits. It was about 35 years old at the time. It was a classic turnaround opportunity. Leadership had been a revolving door. There'd been 4 CEOs in 7 years. In those same 7 years, our guest traffic had declined, our same-store sales were negative, our restaurant average unit volumes and profitability were at dangerously low levels, And we're a franchise owner system, so our franchisees were unhappy people, and our relationship with them was completely on the rocks. Those people called investors where they weren't happy either. The stock had fell from $35 to $13 on that day in 2007. So, what better time for a grand experiment in leadership, right? There was absolutely nothing to lose. What if we could show a turnaround in a public company, survive the scrutiny of 340 franchise owners, entrepreneurs, and those public pressures of Wall Street, those cynical, short-term investors? Well, our turnaround has 3 tenets that I want to share with you today. The first is we declared a daring destination. At our very first meeting with the Popeyes franchise owners, we said this. We said, we have a bold ambition. We're going to make this brand, Popeyes, the hottest concept in quick service restaurants. We're going to grow sales, restaurant profits, and new unit returns will be top tier among our competitors. Well, this idea in the fall of 2007, was it daring or was it just harebrained? At the time, there weren't 5 people that thought we were anything but nuts. In the outside world, people said things like, fried chicken isn't going to sell anymore. Popeyes is old and dated. It's a has-been. Been there, done that. After this conference with our franchisees, we went back home to the typical conference room and decided to prepare a plan on how we were going to do this. Well, we did what you would do. We built very specific goals. We called it our roadmap to results. We said we're going to make this chain $1.2 million in average unit sales. We're going to give our guests 180-second service at the drive-thru. That would be at least mediocre. We're going to do 22% restaurant operating profit, and we're going to build more than 100 restaurants in the U.S. and 100 internationally per year. We had very specific action steps under each one of these 4 pillars that you see under the screen. We said we were going to develop new products, new messaging. We would improve speed of service. We would save money in the supply chain. We would build restaurants on better real estate. So really all we had to do was execute the plan, right? Just that easy, right? Well, I believe looking back, there was a far more important thing we did than create the strategy for the turnaround of Popeyes. The second action that we took required a choice. We chose to serve. Now, I remember this meeting like it was yesterday. We were, again, in a conference room with flip charts. That's pretty much how we spend our lives, figuring out who would we serve. We listed all the possibilities on this chart: the guest, the team members, the franchise owners, the board of directors, the shareholders, the regulators, the accountants. Have we missed anybody? My CFO said, don't we have to serve all those people? In business, we certainly do have to serve a lot of people, and they're all important in some way, but that day we decided that we could not serve them equally, that we would have to pick one group to serve as our primary focus, and we chose our franchise owners. Now, in our business model, the franchise owner licensed the right to use the Popeyes brand and the operating system to run a restaurant. The franchise owner borrows money to invest in building a Popeyes. They hire and train the crews, they build relationships with the community, and they serve every guest that comes in the restaurant. So we concluded if the franchise owner was not well served, they wouldn't be here. They would sell or close their restaurants. They would certainly reduce our ability to serve Popeyes' amazing Louisiana food. So we decided they were the lifeblood of Popeyes' past, present, and future, and we would measure our success only by their success. Well, as I tell you this story, it might even sound a little smug, like, oh, weren't you the smart one, right? Think up to serve your franchisees. It might even sound too obvious, like my daughter would say, duh. But I want to be completely transparent with you. On the day we talked about this, we didn't even like our franchisees. I don't know if you've ever met a franchisee, but they're really opinionated. And when they're mad, they're not very nice. They're emotional, they're not fact-based. They can be challenging to work with, and we have 340 of them. And our mindset, to be perfectly honest, was the most important people were not our favorite people. Looking back, we actually had to make a much bigger change in our thinking than choosing to serve. We had to actually love the people we lead. We had to love the franchisees for making those huge investments in our business. We needed to love them for their passion about the future. They were all in. We needed to love them enough to listen to them and learn from their experiences. It was honestly a pretty game-changing notion to love the people we lead. And interestingly, it's differentiated us pretty significantly from our competitors. I'd rather have brought a franchisee with me today to tell you this story, but since I couldn't, I'd share with you this measure of how we measure ourselves. In 2007, when we began our franchise survey to find out how we were serving, our franchisees gave us a 76% satisfaction rating. That's, in parent language, a C grade, right? Last year, our franchisees gave our leadership a 93% rating. That's an A grade. And so we declared this destination, step one, the daring destination. But step two was we chose to serve our franchise owners and actually chose to love them. The third and final step in our grand experiment was we actually delivered results. Now, I draw your attention to this for a very specific reason. If we didn't have any results, we would not have any opportunity to talk about our approach to leadership. No one would be interested. Fast forward to today, 7 years later, we have arrived at that daring destination. Our U.S. restaurant sales are up 30%. Our restaurant profits for our owners are up 40%. Our market share is up 50%. Our restaurants have been remodeled to a fresh, new day look and feel. And last year we built over 200 restaurants. Only McDonald's beat us at that. We're beginning to successfully open these markets mentioned around the world, and the results compared to our peers are pretty exceptional. That public measure of performance, which we don't think about all that much, but it's increased from $13 per share, our stock price, to $60 yesterday. So any way you look at our Popeye story by popular culture's views, we have changed the game, and our grand experiment has been a success. A daring destination, serving the owners well, creating the conditions for industry-leading performance. So I said at the beginning, we're just one company, but we wanted to provoke this conversation with leaders like you. So let me round up with some implications of this to you as leaders of your business. What would be the implication if you did these same 3 steps? If you declared a daring destination for your enterprise, if you chose to love the people that you lead, and if you really focused on results, you too would have this story. Let's go to the Bible, which is the most amazing training book for leadership, is it not? My first encouraging words to you are to be extremely brave and bold, just as crazy as we were 7 years ago. We find this directive in Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. This story starts, remember, after the death of Moses, the servant of our Lord. God is telling Joshua he's the leader that's going to follow Moses and take the Israelites to the promised land. Can you imagine being given that task? God anticipates that Joshua's got some anxiety about it. And he gives him these words. He says, "As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land." Now, I want you to go to this chapter later today, because God had to repeat that 3 times. Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Now, as I think about leaders in the Bible, I can't remember any that were asked by God to do cowardly small things, which leads me to conclude that God might be provoking the same thought for us. Be brave and bold. I want to encourage you to trust the word of God as it was given to Joshua. If you are called to the workplace, God's looking for some bold, brave, exciting stuff to happen. And we can lead as if God was with us wherever we go, because he is. And we need not be preyed on by disappointment or fear. We need to only obey his command, just as Joshua did. So I want you to reflect on this idea. Am I taking my team on a brave journey? And if I'm not, what could I do? The second encouragement is this. I want to encourage you to love these people that have been entrusted to your care. Now, I know we're Christians, so that's supposed to be obvious, but I find for myself it's not always obvious to focus on loving the people that are in front of me at work. From 1 Peter chapter 4, we're given the words, use whatever gift you've received to serve others. The teaching in this chapter reminds us that once we become believers in Christ, we're a new being created by God to serve his purposes. And serving others is using our gifts and talents that God has given us. Serving others is stewarding God's love and grace in the places we lead. And interesting enough, this chapter also ends with a send-off, almost like the one to Joshua. It says, if anyone serves, do so with the strength God provides, so that in all things God may be praised. Serving others is how we give God glory. So I challenge you and encourage you to intentionally serve each day these human lives we've been given the privilege to steward in the workplace, to hold ourselves to the highest standard of serving them well. Now, serving them well includes giving clear direction, candid feedback, frequent thank yous, annual performance reviews, coaching them to reach all the talents and gifts God has given them, helping them be their very best. Reflect on this idea as if you truly love the people you lead. Will you be one day remembered as the leader who served them well? So this final area, the third word of encouragement, is around delivering results. If we believe the Bible tells us to be brave, if we believe the Bible directs us to serve, then my final thought is, do we believe that the Bible directs us to perform? Does excellence and results bring honor and glory to God? Should we run this race as if we're aiming to win? Now, interestingly enough, do this word search, NIV version, the word results only comes up once in my Bible. It's in Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians, where he says, you know, brothers and sisters, that our visit to you was not without results. Paul reminds the people that they were doing daring work, preaching the gospel. They were serving the people, loving them as Christ would. Things were pretty difficult in Thessalonica, but Paul urged them to push forward and anticipate God's results, saying, live lives worthy of God who calls you to his kingdom and glory. These words, I think, encourage us to excellence. Wouldn't we want to perform for the purpose and for the glory of God? But I find, particularly among Christians, this is a struggle of a conversation about performance. So I want to give you a word picture to think about as you work through your principle, your biblical principle about performance. Do you love music? Did you enjoy Steve this morning? Do you love music? Well, I really love music too, and one of the things I love about it is I think it draws us closer to our Creator. So for me, I love sacred choral music. It's kind of old-fashioned, but I'm kind of old. So my favorite group in Atlanta is led by a man named Eric Nelson, and it's called the Atlanta Master Chorale. They're a volunteer a cappella group that sings sacred music. And every season, Eric leads this group, right? He's a leader. He chooses really challenging music, daring, I would say. He auditions his volunteer musicians and chooses the top talent. He then challenges them with practice and coaching. He prepares them to perform. He serves the choir well, so that when we, the audience, come to the performance, we hear a thing of great beauty. And Eric's concerts sell out every time. The conductor of this chorale is a leader who is daring and bold, who serves the people in his choirs well, and he delivers a performance that you will not forget once you leave the auditorium. In the same way, could we work for God's glory, to call out a daring destination, assemble a gifted team, challenge them with projects and coaching, and create those conditions for an amazing song. Reflect on this idea. There are no great leaders without great results. We know this to be true in leaders in history. We know this to be true in leaders in the Bible. Why not in our leadership as well? These are the leadership lessons I brought to share with you today. I hope I've emptied a little bit into your cup. From my cup, I hope I've left you encouraged. If you want to continue this conversation, I blog every week about it, but importantly, I also have discussion guides to talk about these things. One is a general market, the other's faith-based. Please go to the website if you're interested in those, they're free. Finally, let me leave you with my favorite leadership quote. It comes from another of my favorite pastors, Albert Mohler at Southern Seminary in Louisville. He inspires me to go to work and develop leaders daily by saying this: leaders are made by other leaders who go on to make yet more leaders. And I'd ask you to join me in that journey and dare to serve. Thank you.